My life used to be a well-oiled machine. My name is Mia, I'm 34, and I work in finance, which probably explains why I like things orderly. My husband, Brent, who's 36, and I had a pretty sweet setup, a comfortable house, our own routines, and the kind of quiet evenings that make you grateful for adulthood. Then, one Tuesday, Brent dropped a bomb. "Mom needs a place to stay for a bit," he said, not looking at me, just fiddling with his watch. "Just for a few weeks, while her apartment building gets some repairs." I remember the exact moment my stomach dropped. "A few weeks?" I asked, trying to keep my voice even. Brent's mother, Ciara, 62, was a force. A judgmental, opinionated force. Brent just nodded, already retreating into his conflict-avoidant shell. Kiara arrived 2 days later, not with a suitcase, but with enough luggage to outfit a small army for a year-long expedition. Before her bags even hit the floor, she was critiquing the paint color in the living room. "Oh dear Mia, this beige is so drab. Doesn't it just suck all the life out of the room?" I tried to be gracious, I really did. I smiled, offered her tea, and showed her to the guest room. Within hours, my kitchen, my sanctuary, was rearranged. My spice rack, meticulously organized alphabetically, was now grouped by most used. My coffee mugs, a collection I loved, were relegated to a bottom shelf. Every time I reached for something, it wasn't there. "Just helping you optimize, dear," Ciara would say, a saccharine smile plastered on her face. Brent, bless his heart, just kept telling me, "She just needs time to adjust, Mia. You know how she is." I felt like I was screaming into a void. He saw her, but he didn't see me. The final straw of that first week came late one evening. We were all winding down, and Ciara suddenly announced, "My back is simply killing me. You know, that guest room mattress just isn't doing it. I think I'll take the master bedroom tonight. For my back, you understand." She didn't wait for an answer. She just started moving her things. Brent, my husband, the man I married, just stood there, looking at his shoes, as his mother effectively kicked us out of our own bed. That night, Brent and I slept in the guest room, listening to the muffled sounds of Kiara settling into our space. The next morning, I woke up in the guest room, feeling like a stranger in my own house. Brent was already up, probably trying to avoid the inevitable conversation. I went into the master bedroom, which now smelled faintly of lavender potpourri and old lady perfume, to get dressed. My closet door was ajar. Half my clothes were gone from their hangers, folded neatly in clear plastic bins on the floor. My favorite pair of red heels, the ones Brent bought me for our anniversary, were nowhere to be found. Ciara, sitting up in my bed, sipping tea, looked at me with wide, innocent eyes. "Oh dear, you found them! I was just helping you declutter. And those shoes? Dreadful things. I'm sure they had moths. I put them out for the trash." Moths. Right. In a perfectly sealed closet. I didn't even have time to process that before I went to the kitchen for coffee. The fridge, my fridge, was now secured with a small, flimsy chain and a padlock. Taped to the door was a handwritten note. "Mia, dear, late-night snacking is simply not good for your figure. I've taken the liberty of securing the perishables. We'll open it for meals." My jaw actually dropped. When Brent finally appeared, I cornered him. "Did you see what your mother did to the fridge? And my closet? My shoes are gone." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Mia, come on. She's just trying to help. She means well. It's temporary, remember?" He refused to meet my gaze, already retreating. "Can't we just ride this out?" Later that day, I needed a moment of peace, so I went to grab my journal from my nightstand, which was now in the guest room. It wasn't there. A cold dread settled in. I found it tucked under Tiara's pillow in the master bedroom, a bookmark halfway through my private thoughts. "What are you doing?" I snapped, snatching it back. Ciara just blinked, feigning surprise. "Oh, that old thing. I was just tidying up. It was lying around. You really shouldn't leave personal items out like that. Someone might think you're being paranoid. I called Stella, my friend, that evening, practically whispering into the phone. She's everywhere, Stella. She's in my head. Stella, always pragmatic, said, Mia, you need to set boundaries. This is insane. She's actively trying to erase you. I tried. I really did. But the next morning, as I searched for a document for work, I found my college diploma, the one I'd worked so hard for, folded in half and shoved behind a picture frame. And then, I noticed the empty space on my jewelry box. My grandmother's sapphire ring, the one she wore every day, the one I inherited, was gone. Just gone. The missing ring and the diploma incident were just the beginning. Ciara's control tactics intensified over the next few weeks. It was like living under a microscope, but the lens was always distorted. She'd leave notes about dust on the baseboards, or how my plants looked thirsty. One Sunday, during a family dinner with Brent's aunt and uncle, Ciara decided to put on a show. Mia, dear, she announced, loud enough for everyone to hear. Brent works so hard. It's a shame you don't have more time to keep the house in order. I've been doing all the cooking and cleaning since I arrived, just to help out. My face burned. I work full-time in finance, just like Brent. I contribute equally. But in her narrative, I was the lazy wife. Brent just cleared his throat and changed the subject, effectively undermining me. When I tried to talk to Brent about it later, he just shrugged. My mom means well, Mia. She's old-fashioned. Just ignore her. Ignore her? How could I ignore someone actively dismantling my life? I started questioning myself. Was I really that bad? Was I imagining things? My work performance suffered. My focus was shot. I felt isolated, like I was losing my mind. One afternoon, my mom, Sandra, called to check in. She lives a few states away, and we've always had a somewhat distant relationship, but she's still my mother. I was talking to her in the living room, trying to keep my voice low, when Ciara walked in, talking loudly on her own phone. She didn't realize I could still hear her through the thin wall of the dining room. Yes. Well, Mia's mother is calling again, she said, her voice dripping with disdain. Honestly, that woman is a waste of a womb. Can you imagine raising a daughter so ungrateful? I froze, my blood running cold. Sandra, my mother, had always been a target for Ciara's subtle jabs, but to hear her say something so vile, so openly, was a punch to the gut. That night, I went to take my usual sleep medication. I keep them in a small, discreet bottle in my bathroom cabinet. When I opened the cabinet, the bottle was there, but the pills were scattered all over the shelf, some crushed, some missing. I had 2 bottles, a refill I hadn't opened yet. Both were there, but one was completely empty, and the other was half gone, the remaining pills strewn about. My heart hammered against my ribs. This wasn't just passive-aggressive anymore. This was calculated. This was dangerous. Finding my medication scattered and missing was terrifying, but it was nothing compared to what I found 2 months after Ciara moved in. 2 months of living in a house that no longer felt like mine. 2 months of Brent's excuses. 2 months of feeling like I was losing my grip. I was taking out the trash, something Ciara had suddenly decided was my sole responsibility, when I noticed a large white garment bag shoved deep into the bottom of the bin. My heart gave a strange lurch. It was too familiar. I pulled it out, my hands shaking. Inside, my wedding dress. Not just in there, but shredded, ripped down the middle, lace-torn, beads scattered, and tucked into the folds, a handful of letters. My private letters from Brent, from Stella, from my grandmother. All torn, some with crude, mocking drawings scrawled on them. A cold, hard fury settled over me, replacing the fear and confusion. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't helping. This was an act of pure, malicious destruction. I walked back into the house, the ruined dress clutched in my hands, and found Brent and Ciara in the living room, watching TV. "What is this?" I demanded, my voice barely a whisper, but shaking with rage. I held up the dress. Ciara barely glanced at it. "Oh, that old thing? It was taking up space. And frankly, dear, it's a bit dated, isn't it? I thought I was doing you a favor, making room for new beginnings." She actually smirked. Brent, my husband, looked at the shredded dress, then at my face, twisted with anguish. He actually let out a small nervous chuckle. "Mia, come on. It's just a dress. You're having a meltdown over a dress?" That was it. That was the moment. The betrayal wasn't just Kiara's anymore. It was Brent's, too. His laughter, his dismissal, solidified it. He wasn't just unsupportive. He was complicit. I felt a switch flip inside me. The victim was gone. I called Stella, tears streaming down my face as I recounted everything. "She destroyed my dress, Stella, and Brent just laughed." Stella's voice was firm. "Mia, you need to document everything, every single thing. She's escalating. You need proof." That night, after everyone was asleep, I went online. I ordered a hidden camera kit, small and discreet, the kind that looks like a USB charger. I wasn't sure what I'd catch, but I knew I had to try. I couldn't live like this anymore. As I lay in the guest bed staring at the ceiling, a muffled conversation drifted from the master bedroom. Ciara's voice, low and conspiratorial. "Getting Mia out and taking the house. It's the only way, Brent. We deserve it." My blood ran cold. This wasn't just about making my life miserable. This was about taking everything. The hidden camera kit arrived 2 days later. My hands were steady as I unpacked it, a strange calm settling over me. I wasn't scared anymore. I was methodical. I installed the first camera in the master bedroom, disguised as a phone charger on the nightstand, pointing towards the bed and the main door. The second, a tiny pinhole camera, went into my closet, tucked behind a stack of sweaters. I aimed it at the spot where my grandmother's ring used to sit, and where Ciara had decluttered my shoes. I wasn't just looking for proof of her maliciousness. I was looking for patterns, for motive. Over the next 2 weeks, the footage started rolling in. It was worse than I imagined. The camera in the bedroom caught Ciara rummaging through my side of the nightstand, then taking my remaining sleep medication, pouring some into her hand, and then scattering the rest on the floor, just like I'd found them. She even smirked at the camera, as if she knew it was there but couldn't see it. Another night, she was filmed mocking me to Brent, mimicking my voice, calling me that little princess who can't handle a bit of constructive criticism. Brent just laughed along, nodding. The closet camera, meanwhile, caught her in the act of sabotaging my clothes. She'd take a pair of scissors to a seam, or spill a tiny amount of bleach on a dark dress, then carefully put it back. She even replaced a designer handbag with a cheap knockoff she must have brought with her, hiding my original in a laundry bag she later took out to the trash. The most damning footage, though, wasn't just about my possessions. It was about her character. I watched her on camera, talking on the phone to Abigail Ross, a local church leader who Ciara had always been close to. Ciara was spinning elaborate lies about my mental instability, claiming I was neglecting Brent and the house, and that she was so worried about my erratic behavior. She even cried on cue. Then, a few nights later, I caught Brent on the phone with Dexter Ross, his boss. Brent was downplaying my concerns, painting me as overly emotional and prone to exaggeration. He said, "She's just stressed, Dexter. You know how women can be." The final piece of the puzzle came late one night. Ciara was on the phone, her voice low and venomous. "Oh, don't you worry," she hissed into the phone. "I'll ruin that little tramp if it's the last thing I do. She won't know what hit her." The camera, silent and unblinking, captured every word. I had 46 hours of footage. 46 hours of Kira's venom, Brent's complicity, and the systematic dismantling of my life. I watched it all, every sickening minute, and with each clip, my resolve hardened. This wasn't just about getting Kira out, it was about exposing the truth. I spent an entire weekend meticulously editing the footage, creating short, digestible clips, each one a damning piece of evidence. I organized them by recipient, tailoring the package to hit where it would hurt most. First, Brent's older sister, Virginia, 38, who had always been cold towards me but was fiercely protective of her family's reputation. I sent her a compilation showing Kiara's maliciousness, her lies, and the way she manipulated Brent. The subject line was simple: the truth about Mom. Next, Dexter Ross, Brent's boss. I included the clips of Brent dismissing my mental state, painting me as unstable, and Ciara's phone call where she claimed she'd ruin that little tramp. I also added the footage of Ciara stealing my medication, highlighting the potential legal implications. Dexter, I knew, was a stickler for professional conduct and wouldn't tolerate an employee creating a hostile environment, especially one that could lead to legal trouble. Finally, I compiled a general package for Ciara's church group, including Abigail Ross, the leader Ciara had lied to. This one focused on Ciara's hypocrisy, her public shaming of me, and her cruel comments about my mother. I attached a transcript of her waste of a womb comment. The emails went out simultaneously on a Monday morning. The backlash was immediate. My phone started buzzing almost instantly. Virginia called, her voice tight with shock and anger. "Mia, what is this? Is this real?" she demanded, clearly shaken by what she'd seen of her mother. An hour later, I got a text from Brent. "Dexter just called me into an urgent meeting. What did you do?" He sounded panicked. I smiled. Ciara's phone, which she always kept on speaker, started ringing incessantly with calls from her church friends, all of whom she quickly silenced. I overheard snippets. "Abigail is furious, Kiara." And, "How could you say those things?" While the chaos erupted, I quietly prepared my legal case. I'd already consulted with a lawyer Stella recommended. I arranged for a temporary protection order against Ciara, citing the medication tampering and the threats. I also began the process of terminating the lease on our house, knowing I couldn't stay there a moment longer. That evening, just as I was about to leave work, Brent burst into my office. His face was pale, his eyes red and swollen. "Mia, please," he choked out, tears streaming down his face. "You can't do this. I've been fired. My career is over. If you don't come home, I'll tell everyone you set this whole thing up. I'll expose your revenge." His voice was laced with desperation and a chilling threat. Brent's tear-streaked face was a mask of desperation, but I felt nothing. The man standing before me, threatening me, was not the man I married. He was a stranger, a puppet of his mother, and a willing participant in my torment. "Expose what, Brent?" I asked, my voice calm, almost detached. "The truth? The truth that you stood by and watched your mother systematically destroy my life? The truth that you laughed when she shredded my wedding dress? The truth that you told your boss I was unstable? Go ahead. Tell everyone. I have the receipts, literally." He stammered, his face paling further. "Mia, please don't do this. I'm sorry. I was wrong. I'll make it right. Just come home. We can fix this." He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "There's nothing to fix, Brent," I said, looking him dead in the eye. "It's over." I then laid out my hand, revealing my carefully orchestrated exit. "I've already moved my personal funds into a separate account. The lease on the house is being terminated, effective next month. And I have a temporary protection order against Ciara, which by extension means you can't come near me either." His jaw dropped. He tried to plead again, his voice cracking, but the power had shifted. He was no longer the placating husband. He was a jobless, exposed man facing the consequences of his inaction. My phone buzzed with a text from Virginia. It was a long message, full of apologies and a promise to deal with Mom. Then another from Abigail Ross, expressing her profound disappointment in Ciara's deceit and confirming Ciara had been asked to step down from her church duties. The messages kept coming, a mix of support for me and condemnation for Ciara. Stella met me outside my office, a small smile on her face. "Ready?" she asked, a box of my essentials already in her hands. She helped me move into her spare condo, a small but bright space that felt like a sanctuary after months of living in a war zone. As we unpacked, my phone rang again. It was Brent, his voice hoarse, threatening legal retaliation. I just laughed, a genuine, unburdened laugh. "Go ahead, Brent," I said, feeling a surge of power. "I have 46 hours of footage. What do you have?" I hung up before he could respond. Sierra and Brent might threaten, but I had the evidence, and more importantly, I had a newfound freedom that felt more precious than anything they could ever take from me. The new condo, Stella's spare, felt like a breath of fresh air. I sat on the small balcony, a mug of coffee warming my hands, watching the city wake up. The silence was deafening, but it was a welcome silence, not the oppressive quiet of my old house. My phone, which had been a constant source of buzzing since the emails went out, was still active. I scrolled through the messages. Brent's texts were a mix of desperate pleas and angry accusations, each one more pathetic than the last. Virginia had sent another, more heartfelt apology, admitting she'd always known her mother was difficult, but never realized the extent of her cruelty. There were even a few from Kiara's former church friends, expressing their shock and disgust. I read them all, a strange sense of catharsis washing over me. There was no forgiveness in my heart, no desire for reconciliation, just a quiet satisfaction that the truth was out. Ciara, I heard through the grapevine, had been officially banned from not one, but 3 local churches. Her carefully constructed facade of piety had crumbled, leaving her isolated and publicly shunned. Brent, true to his word, had been fired from his job with Dexter Ross and was struggling to find new employment, his reputation in tatters. He was living with Kiara, a poetic justice I hadn't anticipated. I knew deep down that revenge wasn't a magic balm. The scars Ciara and Brent had inflicted wouldn't just vanish. There was an emptiness in the fallout, a recognition that the person I was before all this was gone, replaced by someone harder, more wary. But that hardness was also strength. I picked up the phone and called my mom, Sandra. "Hey," I said, a little awkwardly. "It's Mia." We talked for a while, about nothing much, and then about everything. "I wish we'd been closer," I admitted, the words catching in my throat. She just listened, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like she truly heard me. Weeks turned into a month. The quiet autonomy of my new life was a balm. One afternoon, checking my mail, I found a familiar-looking envelope. It was a formal notice, crisp and official. I opened it, my eyes scanning the legal jargon. It was a for sale notice for my old house, the one Brent and I had shared. And at the bottom, the signature, Dunn, Jenkins and Knight, attorneys at law. I stared at the name, a slow, wide smile spreading across my face. Dunn, Jenkins, and Knight. My name, Stella's name, my mother's name. I laughed, a full, genuine laugh.